So first, let me thank my colleague. I too call him friend, Director Phelps, for the invitation and for always being able to speak with Althea when I come to a lot of conferences for tsunami. Well, I want to start by saying I'm going to be speaking to you briefly because I want to give you opportunity to ask me questions. And I'll say it up front, you can ask me anything. But I want you to understand my answer might come from 6 different perspectives. And so when I speak to you today, I'm going to speak to you as the director of ITEMA, that I am. I'm going to speak to you from the perspective of the Homeland Security Advisor to the governor, and that I am. I'm going to speak to you from the perspective of a daughter, because Hurricane Irma came in on my mother's birthday. She turned 78 September 6th. I'm going to speak to you from the perspective of a sister that the last emergency or mercy flight that left the territory left with my sister on it that had just gotten a stroke after Hurricane Maria. I'm going to speak to you from the perspective of a pastor, of which I am. And on the very day that the vice president came to the territory, I was burying one of my members. And so my mom had to do the first part of her funeral service, and I got there in time to do the interment. And then finally, I'll speak to you from the perspective of just being a citizen in the territory. So for those of you that don't know what happened, around September the 3rd of 2017, I got a call from the National Weather Service. And they said to me, Mona, you know, seems like you're going to have a Cat 5 storm. It's moving in your area. You know, it's on a course. We don't see it moving anyway, but coming straight at you. You're probably going to have some catastrophic devastation in the St. Thomas, St. John area based on what we're forecasting. And I was like, oh, okay. Because when I took the job in 2015, I just knew that something significant was going to happen during my tenure. But I will tell you, I was not so heavily prepared for hurricanes because I kept telling my staff, you know, if we've gone through Hurricane Hugo, we went through Hurricane Marilyn, which devastated, you know, St. Croix and St. Thomas, one in 1989, one in 1995. And I said, if we are not prepared to respond to a Cat 5, shame on us. And so my focus was that event that everybody kept talking about, that we were overdue for, which was a tsunami. Everyone, you know, all the scholars in the territory would say, you know, in the next, every 150 years, there's a significant event and we're believing it's going to be a tsunami. And the last one we had was 1867 and it's past due. And so all my energy and all my work was going into how do I prepare the community to respond to a tsunami. And September 3rd came, it was a Cat 5. I said, okay. And in September 6th, I remember midnight, you know, I told my mom, happy birthday. I gave her a kiss and I went through the door. The first question I asked to you is your family prepared? I listened to everybody in the room and, you know, everybody's talking about, you know, the offices and the governor. And have you prepared your family as an emergency responder that in a significant event, you're not going to be there? Well, you know, some tsunamis, they don't have any warning, but others do. But I will tell you, if your family is not prepared, you will not be able to support your community. So the first question is your family prepared? And so September 6th came, Irma came through, and she devastated St. Thomas and St. John. I mean, you can't believe what I'm saying. I mean, some houses they just blew up. You had other houses that it just came off the foundation and turned upside down on the side of a hill. If anybody knows St. John, 75% of that island is a national park. And so there is one way in from what's called Coral Bay to Cruz Bay. And if that one road is cut off, you're cut off. The only other way is by water. And so we did all the preparing that we needed to do. We had, folks on one end that was going to push through and then push to the other end and make sure that that road was clear. I had already talked with the National Weather Service, already spoke with FEMA. They had already brought down the IMAT team. I had all my commodities pre-positioned. I did everything that I truly believed that we needed to do to be prepared. When I came in 2015, I focused on outreach, and so, I'll have speaking engagements like this with the community, and I will tell them, in a significant event, folks are gonna die. And they're like, oh, you shouldn't say that. I must say that because it's a fact. The one thing I can say, so let me finish. Irma came through. Damage St. Croix, St. Thomas. Was I concerned? Yes. Was I too worried? Not really. I moved all my assets from St. Croix, the governor, and all those that, played a great role. We got up, we did an assessment, saw the damage, and we began to just respond. About 3 to 4 days later, the National Weather Service, they called me back. And Ernesta and I are friends. And I will tell you, the next thing you need to ensure is you have networking with folks that are going to have to respond with you during a significant event. And so Ernesto calls me and he said, Mona, are you standing or are you sitting? I said, I'm standing. He said, sit down. And I sat down. And when I sat down, he said to me, Mona, you would not believe this, but there's another Cat 5 moving in your direction. I said, you got to be lying. He said, no, I'm not. That's why I wanted you to sit down. And so between 12 days, the United States Virgin Islands, we suffered 2 Category 5 hurricanes. We always had a contingency plan. We always have courses of action. I've been in the military 28 years and retired, and so I know you don't have just one plan. You have to have 2 and 3 and 4. So my initial plan was if something happened in St. Croix, then St. Thomas, St. John will respond. And if something happened in St. Thomas, then St. Croix would respond. And then if something happened in St. Croix and St. Thomas, then we would go to Puerto Rico. Well, so let me give you the line. Write it down. Your worst case scenario is never the worst. Because if someone had said to me that we would have experienced 2 Cat 5 hurricanes in 12 days, I would have said that would happen when hell freezed over and we were selling ice pops. I mean, it's cold here, but hell hasn't freezed over and we can't sell ice pops because I think it's still hot. I say that to say this. And I listened attentively yesterday and even to today. The first thing you've got to do is shift your mindset. And no offense, I know Ray was here and I said he's still alive, so I'll be okay. Because some things I might say, Althea, is probably going to offend some, but it is what it is. Your worst case scenario is not the worst. And it's not a matter of if, it's when. And so if it's next week or 30 years or 3 years, I hear all kind of time being thrown around in the room. It doesn't matter. What you have to ask yourself today, right now, if it happens right now, what do I do? And the first place you need to start is with your family. I heard one of the speakers say, in schools, let me tell you something. If you get it in your children's head, they'll make sure you get it. A lot of my outreach is in the schools. So let's talk about before. Again, we prepared. I think I had all my ducks in a row. 2016 in May, we had the Vigilant Guard exercise. It was designed around Category 5 and then a tsunami coming in and our response. We had 1,200 participants, and so a lot of the players that were at that event eventually were the players that supported us. During the first, between September 3rd and I think it was about December 22nd, in 68 days, 62 of those days, the governor, myself, and other cabinet members, we did press conferences every night. To answer your question, ma'am, I don't know the name of the lady right next to Althea. Some of the things that happened was we had no communication, zero. We had 123 towers in the territory. Every one of them fell to the ground. Every one. We had to patient evacuate both hospitals because they were devastated. And we moved folks out of the territory, and 24 hours later, we didn't know where they were. We had initially we estimated 1.2 billion cubic yard of debris. To today, we still have over 100,000 cubic yard of vegetative debris in the territory. Someone spoke about sheltering. Right now, in the response, we can't even find places to house the folks that are trying to come and help us to respond. We have people in our territory actually moving out of their homes, moving in with loved ones just so we can have housing to get help doing the recovery. Points of distribution. We had points of distribution, but every one of them that we went through with FEMA, and FEMA said, great, this is in a great area. Folks gonna just drive up in their cars, they're gonna pop the trunk, we're gonna drop the food and the water, and they're gonna drive off. None of them survived the hurricanes. And logistically, and please forgive me, I'm not trying to be rude, but experience becomes the best teacher. You must understand, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, and Water Island, they're all separated by water. And so even if you desire to go from St. Thomas to Water Island, which is probably, if you were to run it, it'd probably take you 15 minutes running, you can't because it's separated by water. And so the logistical nightmare, you can just only imagine. And so we were talking one time, and I gave the story to, I think it was to the director when I was coming down. And so we're on a conference call with HHS, and there's a lady in DC. I never got her name, and that was a good thing. And so we're in a conference call because we got to move. We were actually moving water and MREs via helicopter off a ship. That was my world. And so we're in a conference call with HHS and, and the Human Services, and they're trying to find out, what's going on and, how the money is being spent. And so she said, I just don't understand why you're just flying stuff all over the place. Why are you not driving this stuff from point A to point B? And so the representative that was in the room with me, she said, because I was about to tell her something that probably would have cost me my job. Let me say something to you. Know your area of operation. And I'll say that because, I have to stop right here. I see the folks that have on the CERT jackets. Where you at? Put your hand up. And then let me see the hands of those that volunteer. Put it higher. I want everyone, if your hand is not up, I want you to clap for them, and I'm going to tell you why. After any significant event, your volunteers are heroes. But I will tell you, after immediate response, you know the good thing about volunteers? They don't play by the rules. And they have no rules, and they operate from instinct, and it saved lives. You hear what I just said? And most persons, if they're a volunteer, their heart is in what they're doing. And so they're going to evoke response. And so I say to each and every one of you that's a CERT or a volunteer, after those 2 storms, the volunteers, the residents of the territory got up and did that initial response work. And I will thank you in advance because yours is coming. I'm going to make a comment, and people say, you know, you should say some things, Director Barnes. But I already know who my ride is. You don't know. So I'll just get my bags, jump in the person's car, and I'll be gone. Plans are good. But I want you to understand it's only a guide. Because no plan is written to a specific event, because there are no 2 events that are alike. So you cannot use the same plan for every event. See? Out there, some of them are like, oh, she was going good until she just said that. And if your plans are based on your last event, you're behind the power curve. We are now at a time in emergency management where you got to think, like sometimes when I'm preaching and I'm saying, you know, saints, you got to think the impossible. You got to dream. You got to believe. You now have to do that in emergency management. You now have to think of that thing that folks would say will never happen. Because it will. I don't get in an argument with the president, whether it's climate change or no change. You know, my governor wasn't re-elected, and so the opponent that won, they had a slogan, change course now. It doesn't matter to me. The fact of the matter is, you've got to think about stuff that has not yet happened and plan to that. So in my thought process now, I said, so what can be worse than 2 Cat 5 in 12 days? So I'm starting to think, okay, they create now a Cat 6, so I get 3 of those, and then that rolls in with a tsunami. We laugh, right? But then probably your children's children, they're gonna see the video. You're gonna start talking about that lady that came from the Virgin Islands and said something, and 50 years later, they're gonna be like, wow, my grandmother, well, my mom told me that. That is where we're going in emergency management. After the storm, 4,000 residents were evacuated, whether on Mercy flight or Mercy cruises. Think about that. We actually had ships in the harbor housing responders because there were no way to put them. I will tell you, whether they hear or not, it doesn't matter, but anybody in the room from FEMA? Okay. But anyway, it's on the video. Yeah. You know, like I said, my governor hasn't been re-elected, and I told Director Phelps, you know, in about 30 days, I'm going to resign from this job anyway, so. FEMA is great, but they have their complexities just like your state or local government. And so if you have your mindset that an event is going to happen, FEMA is going to come and save us, your mindset is warped. Take that out of your mind. They will support you, but you, the residents, the first responders, the emergency managers, you know, the gentleman, is he still here from the governor's office? Is he still? Good. Your mindset has to shift of how do we take care of ourselves until they get here. And even after they get here, you must understand, right now in our territory, we have been obligated and not capped $8 billion for our recovery. I say hallelujah. Because all the things that the past 8 governors wanted to do and couldn't because they said we don't have the monies to do it, they don't have an excuse. So unlike Oregon, where I've been hearing, money is the issue. In the territory right now, that's not it. But I have learned that you can throw money at a thing, but if you don't have the knowledge, the wisdom to execute it, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. It makes no difference. But it's good to have the money. So we just need the folks to manage it properly so that you can do what you need to do. I'm serious. We have in St. Thomas, the 85% of the government agencies are in the inundation zone. The junior high school, the senior high school, one of 2 in St. Thomas, they're in the inundation zone. And so because of the storm, we now have the ability to move the one school. I'm going to say this and you're going to be like, you got to be kidding me. My office in St. Thomas and my office in St. Croix that I'm leasing, but now we have the opportunity to move those things. And so I just want to say, because I really want you to ask me the easy or hard or whatever questions you want to ask. Again, you can ask me anything. But I will tell you, my reality has taught me that individual preparation is the key. Now, with all that I said to you, we only lost 5 lives immediately after the storm. I say, not just myself, but my predecessors, they did something right. Folks were prepared. They were. If not, okay, you're talking 187 mile per hour wind coming through St. Thomas, St. John, and Gustin at 210. That's what I'm talking. I know it's like, yeah. 5 lives. But as I speak to you right now, and I got the sit rep this morning, we still have some 39 people in Atlanta 15 months after this event because we cannot provide dialysis services. We are still in the process with New Jersey of standing up operating rooms in St. Croix so that when you have a minor break, you don't have to be airlifted. Think about what I just said. 15 months after the fact. And so I say in your preparation for your event, because I heard somebody say you haven't gotten anything yet, right? Yeah. It's going to happen. And you can't pray it away. I prayed. I had my church fast and pray. Lord, we thank you. Shift that storms. We're believing by faith. And we did all of that. And it came. Some things just will be. What are you doing to prepare? Well, it's the city, it's the state. No. What are you doing to prepare yourself and your family? My mom was 77, and I could walk out of the house because she knew what to do. She knew the drill. She knew how to turn her. If the generator didn't go on automatically, she knew how to go downstairs and do automatic. She knew if, the wind started blowing, the roof goes, she knew it was a safe haven in the house. She knew if it caught on fire, what to do. Are you preparing your family? That's my, with everything that I heard today, I want to Don't tell me what the state hasn't done. Don't tell me about the roads that ain't blue. Don't tell me about, the verticals that have not been done. What have you done to prepare yourselves and your family? Do you realize that you and your family make up this community? So why are you dependent on the state or the government or Director Phelps to ensure that your family is safe? Well, I can't do anything. Yes, you can. You can talk to them. Depending, if you're in the inundation zone, your family must know, one, where is your safe zone? And if we get separated, where do we relocate? And so, I know it got real quiet, I'm sorry. Because I want you to think about what I'm saying. Because some of those things happened. The one young lady that died, she was in her bathtub covering her 3 children. And if the complex was this room, the wind blew the front and the back out, blew it out, and sucked her out of the tub. But the 3 children stayed in the tub. We had 236 boats that sunk in our harbor. Think about what I'm saying. You are in a profession, let me say it as I close. It's one of the most fulfilling, but one of the most unappreciated professions. Because the minute one life is lost, it's your fault. I had people, Director Barnes, it's your fault. You make me stand up in the line to get MREs in the hot sun. But when they go to Disney World, they stand in the line and it says 45 minutes until the ride. So those are the realities that you have to say to people. Like, okay, you're upset with me because you're in a line for commodities that we are providing for you. And you're telling me the lines are too long. But when you go to Disney World, Mickey Mouse tell you, you gotta wait 45 minutes before you get on this ride, and you're good with that. You must speak to folks in a reality realm. In any significant event, you're gonna lose lives. How many you lose depend on how well you prepare yourself. Then you can talk about state, and then, local, and then state, and then, government. And so I want to give the opportunity for you to ask me questions, so I will pause and go.